Thank you, Kira. Moving on now, we all like to think of ourselves as important, but our next guest is one of the most influential people this year, alongside people like Diary of a CEO podcaster Stephen Bartlett and Nottinghamshire's very own lioness Mary Earps. Nottingham businessman Kevin Osbon has been named in the top 100 influential people for 2025 awards. That's for positive impact on society, particularly here in Nottingham, after starting his own construction business from his Beeston kitchen 30 years ago and being involved in various Nottingham projects. He is here in the studio now to tell his story. Welcome along, good to see you. How does it feel to be in that top 100?
Bit of a shock, really. Came out of the blue, so it was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
I found out just before Christmas, so it was a nice Christmas present.
Yeah, nice early Christmas present. As I understand it, you're one of the first people in your kind of industry. So that must make it even more special.
Yes, well, I mean, as I say, it came out of nowhere, but there is a bit of a story about how it got to where it got to.
Okay.
I think you mentioned that I started my business in Beeston in 1994. That was just me on my own, and then the two people joined me quickly, and we three became the founders of the business. And so it was a construction consultancy, and we got involved in lots of Nottingham projects. And I think you've got some pictures of the very first one was the Galleries of Justice, now the National Law Museum. So I was the lead consultant project manager on that for a number of years, £12 million project. But at the same time, we did the Maltcross musical. And we worked on lots of local projects, I think, and through that the business grew and grew. The first 7 years was hardest, but once we broke 10 years, people start to say, "Oh, they're here to stay," type of thing, and we started picking up government frameworks, and the business developed and grew. But us three, after say 3 business cycles, which was like a 7-year cycle, is like 21 years long, we got to the point where we had really good staff coming through who were looking to take over running the business. So we had this kind of strange dichotomy, what do we do? Because we had led for a long time and we were getting a bit long in the tooth. So we did an MBO, management buyout, with those where they bought into the business and they now run the business for us. Me and my 2 business partners, we still own the majority of the business, but they run it. And we kind of stand off and act as the joint chair people overseeing the business. But that then gave me the opportunity to go from a 5-day week to a 4-day week to a 3, and then I do about 1.5-2-day week. And it was, what am I going to do in my time? I didn't really want to be playing golf 5 days a week. So I was invited. I was already doing some guest lecturing from Nottingham Trent University, and they invited me and said, "How do you fancy doing teaching construction law and economics a couple of days a week?" So I gave it a go, and then from being in there, I started talking to all the academics, and they don't get good access to many people from industry, so they all start sticking a straw into my head and sucking my brains out, as it were. And before pretty much. And before I knew it, I was involved in all these different research projects, and that led to the very first thing was where I was doing a lot of cultural projects, a lot of cultural quarters, creative industry, not just in Nottingham, like the Lace Market and NG7 and places like that, but all over the country, from Southampton, Eastbourne, Skipton, literally Northampton, Lincoln, all over the place. And so that was the first thing. It was like a placemaking thing. And the university won the Queen's Award for research into heritage and culture. I think it was in 2021, and I was involved with that as part of my team. So that was my first exposure into it. And then then some bright sparks started talking to me about some other things. So I then got involved in the social value work, which is
I was going to ask you about that. So social value and sustainability, I know they're 2 big passions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that features in this book, and
Absolutely.
that led to the award, at least.
Yeah, well, it was the book came first. I was asked to contribute something from industry about how you can make social value work for contractors and for consultants, because there's a lot of people quite sceptical because they see staff taking time off to go and do social value things. So we give all our members of staff 1 day off a week. Sorry, not a week, a year, a day where they can go and do something. They could go and work in a hospice, they could in a school, plant trees, whatever the social good, like community good type thing. And that's actually 70 days because we've got 70 staff that we give back to the community, and there's a value to that. And what we've convinced contractors and consultants to do is to kind of build that into their business models. And that it took off really as a result of doing this research and publishing how we do it. And then other people started to think, well, maybe we should. But the most important thing that happened was a lot of the framework companies, do you know these big government frameworks like Espo, and I'm not trying to, Pagabo and people like that, they started integrating the social value concepts into their tendering processes.
Yes.
And so it became 5% of the mark you could get towards going onto the framework. So it went from being something which was just kind of a general thing where people could decide whether they did it or not, to actually being something, well, we need to do something because we need to get some points to try and win the tender type of thing. So,
all right. Well, listen, congratulations on being that top 100 and fundraising yourself over £1 million. Fantastic stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.